What is going on, guys? Welcome into the Creative Crypto Podcast, where we provide immersive, essential, and evergreen strategies for the novice cryptocurrency investor. How you doing? I'm one half of your host, Boi Crypto. I have here with me, as always, Crypto Ewok, my friend and co-host. We're going to bring him in just a second. This is going to be a great episode tonight. We have a lot to get to. We got BTC still holding strong, despite some naysayers that somehow still exist, I think. I'm excited to talk about this tonight because we are ever closer to Richard Hart's, of course, PulseChain launching. We are getting there. Testnet version 3 has been out now for a little over a week on the dot. And we're going to get into talking about what a portfolio may look like for you or us or whoever after the PulseChain launch if you are in the HEX ecosystem. So I think it's going to be a good discussion here tonight. Ewok, how are you feeling? How you doing on this fine Wednesday evening?
Feeling good. Lots of crazy, well, not crazy news, but lots of interesting stuff happening, even though there's not really anything happening. There's always something going on. I feel like we could probably do a stream almost every night with what happened that day and the interesting things. But yeah, it's really starting to kind of ramp up for us, I feel like, with the inevitable launch here coming, whether it be days or weeks or what it may be, but we're getting there. It's going to be a fun ride.
I'm with you. Yeah, even though this would, I guess, like you would, if you were checking a box, you would say this is one of the slower weeks when it comes to crypto. There's still, sometimes I go and start doing the show notes and you start to discover like there's a lot more going on than you initially
Right.
realize. So,
Yep.
and we've seen a lot of kind of macro world news things coming out about the US dollar here over the last few hours that I think is really interesting and, call me crazy, but really bullish for crypto as well. So, we're going to talk about that. If you're here right now, watching on either my channel, Boi Crypto, or Crypto Ewok, do us a favor, hit the like. We very much appreciate it, and helps get the word out about the show and reach people even more. So thank you guys for stopping in. First and foremost tonight, let's kind of talk about current market conditions. And we skipped our regular fisticuffs last week, Ewok, about where I think the market is or maybe going, where you think the market is maybe going. I want to fight again tonight, though. If you're in that kind of mood, I don't know where you're at now, but okay, this week. So just to kind of talk, first off, let's just say where the market is. BTC at the moment is at about 28.5K. It's been there for the most of today. ETH at right around 1,800. We have HEX on a big time pump again today. It reached almost up to 9 cents. I think I saw earlier. It's at 8.6 right now.
Yep.
And things are popping off today in the crypto sphere. So very, very good, as has been pretty much par for the course here in 2023. But this week, we've had, up until yesterday, actually, for the better part of last week, we did have a little bit of a drawdown, a minor dip. If you've been in this space for, I would say even 3 months, 6 months, you would, not really be shaken by the dip that we had the last few days. We saw Bitcoin go to about 26 and a half or so, come back up above 27. And now, just punching right through 28K again, which has been a sticking point and a very key number after we got beyond 25.5K for Bitcoin to where we are now. So before I get into like some of the points I want to get to on like the higher time frames and stuff like that, and some of our favorite personalities on Twitter and what they're thinking about this whole thing, Ewok, what's your impression about most of the price action that we've seen here in March? And I got to grill you on this point specifically because, we have video evidence the last few weeks of you saying and agreeing with me prior to when we got there that if we started to close out, I don't know your exact words, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if we started to close consistently over 25K, like 25.5K, you would say, yeah, I'm pretty sure the bear market is over or that the lows are in. We're now pretty far beyond that at this point as far as closing, days in a row way over that number. So what do you think right now? Where are you at with this?
Yeah, I'm getting more and more sold on the fact that the bottom is probably in. However, that doesn't mean we can't have another sizable pullback. And I think it could be inevitable, especially if there is some sort of pivot that happens here shortly. I think there'll be a final capitulation. I really do. But the markets in general look good, and I'm not going to deny that. I don't want to be overly bearish and say, well, we're going to go to 12,000. I don't think that anymore. I do think we could dip down to 17, 20, maybe again, maybe a little bit lower if people have longs that would trigger some cascading closes. It could happen. We could go a little bit below, maybe back down to that 15 level, but it would be quick. I think it would be extremely quick, short-lived, and back off to the races. And we almost need that sometimes. You need to wash those last few people out, the weekends, get rid of them, be gone, and then you can do a full reset, and move on to the bear market. So I think it's healthy. I do think we still need a retracement. However, it's looking good. I have to admit that, I think for the most part, we're out of the woods.
Well, that is going to wrap up this edition of the Creative Crypto Podcast. I finally did it. I convinced Ewok to get aboard the bull ship. So, yeah, no, I am with you, though. I mean, like, I've been thinking this since some point in January that it seemed like the lows were in. But I agree with you, too, Ewok, that, like, yeah, we are still in 2023. This is still kind of an accumulation recovery year. So while there'll be days like today where it feels like, oh, yeah, game on, like, up only from here, you will have days like that, but it's going to be kind of, one step forward, two steps back, or vice versa, I think, over the course of this year. And don't get too smacked in the face by it. I mean, like DCA, whatever strategy you want to over the course of the year. But yeah, at the very least, I think we'll see pullbacks to that 25K region again, throughout the course of the year. We just about had it this week. Maybe even as I don't think we'll go below 20 again. But yeah, I could definitely see at some point, a really bad couple of weeks where we do get into the low 20s again, that would freak people out. But yeah, at this point, you can see, and this is what I've been saying, is like some of these pieces of news that are coming out, like we'll talk about this Binance wash trading thing here in a minute. But some of these pieces of news that are coming out are just not being received anywhere nearly as badly as they were in 2022. Now,
Right.
We don't have any FTX blow-ups happening, but we just had banks fail. We just had like 3 crypto banks, Operation Chokehold 2.0, whatever you want to call all this, SEC just setting ablaze to everything. We're having all these things happening, and we're still seeing positive price reaction. So I think
we have to remember those things are good for crypto.
Right.
Banks failing, middlemen failing are so bullish for crypto. They don't trust them. They don't trust the banks anymore. So where are you going to put your money? Where you control it yourself? Well, the only place you can really do that is crypto. So I think that has been beneficial to crypto rather than anything else. It's not bearish for us. I mean, for the people that lost money and were way over invested and not paying attention to that FDIC, there's only $250,000 worth of insurance. So for those that didn't break their accounts apart into multiple ones, they potentially could have gotten wrecked. And I'm not sure, with all the things that the government has done in the past 2 weeks too, they've printed like $500 billion, I think, in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So they've basically undone everything that they've been working on the past 6 or 7 months. And it's printing money. So that's another bullish thing. When they print money, it is very bullish for crypto. So a couple of things that are kind of looking like the world is kind of burning, but it's good for crypto. It's been weird.
Well, I agree with you 100%, but I think the same thing could be said about, if FTX always had what it had going on, it was also good that happened to wash that out as well.
Sure.
I guess what I'm saying is like, yeah, I agree with you that these are all long-term bullish for crypto. It's just that the market's short-term, which has always really been meaningless, but the market's short-term reaction is not as extreme really to either side, I don't think, as it was towards the end of 2022, but I'm with you 100%. Yeah. I mean, we are seeing, I think we're at a really interesting pivotal point right now because we've been seeing what's going on with these banks the last couple of weeks. You just mentioned it. I think we agree that we're on the verge of the Fed pivoting basically, I don't think we see anything worse. We talked about this last week than one more 25-point rate hike in May. I think that's pretty much as bad as it gets at this point, if not a pause at that time. And, that, usually have like some kind of a drawdown of the markets at that point. But, then it's off to the races. Like you said, they're already printing money again. They just can't help themselves. This is just the way that it is going to go. And this is why Bitcoin and crypto was invented. This is why it's here. And this is why we're seeing this kind of price action right now on this asset class when everything else is garbage, and then look at the news that we saw today. You and I were just sharing it with each other. Like some of these big countries no longer dealing in USD. Nobody wants to touch the dollar right now. And it's bullish for crypto. So yeah, let me know what else do you think about that? And what did you make of some of this news between, China and Brazil and their dealings, and then the actually bigger one really from earlier today that you sent over to me. China and Russia and other countries as well.
They're settling oil payments in, I don't know if it was the yen or whatever it was, but not the yen. I don't remember.
Yuan or whatever. Yeah.
Maybe it was. Whatever their Chinese currency is. But yeah, they're not using US dollar for a lot of things between the countries to settle their own payments. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And again, I think all bullish for crypto. So, I mean, there's just so many things pointing to this right now. And I heard a really interesting interview today. I sent it over to you. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to it.
I didn't.
But so I'm not a fan really of Bankless. I mean, in the podcast, in the grand scheme of things, if people are talking crypto, obviously, as far as finance, kind of like it. But those guys aren't exactly my go-to by any stretch of the imagination. But there was a good interview today between the guy that wears glasses that doesn't cry on Bankless and Mark Emmer, Representative Emmer from or Tom Emmer. Why do I do that? Tom Emmer from Minnesota. Who's been like, the bastion of crypto basically within Congress. He's the majority whip for the Republican Party, which is good to know. And man, I'm always skeptical of politicians, no matter what, no matter how good they sound. But Emmer has just done a lot. I know you didn't hear it yet, but Emmer has just he seems to understand crypto. He seems to really understand it. I heard him talk for about 45 minutes on that podcast today. Check it out, Bankless on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. But I really enjoyed the conversation, and it really gave me faith that, it seems like he really is going to war over this. And he was extremely critical of Elizabeth Warren. Yeah. And, some of these old heads that don't understand what's going on here. He was extremely critical of FedNow. He called it a surveillance tool, all of these things. And I don't know where it's going to go, but there's a lot of things hanging up in the judicial system. And he seemed to feel like, the results were going to be on the side of crypto. So
I have to ask, since I didn't see it, did he happen to touch anything on the new bill that's trying to pass, the TikTok law?
No, they did not talk about that.
Because I don't know if you've looked into that at all, but there's more than just about TikTok, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, I think I did see this.
There are a lot of statements in there about payments and how they want to classify payments. So it's very broad. And it just kind of gives them a lot of control over what kind of payments can be made. It also gives them regulations on people using VPNs to access certain sites. So if you use a VPN and you go to a site that they don't permit, there's a quite hefty fine and possibly even jail time. So
there you go. You hear that? No more streaming out of market basketball games.
Yep. So I mean, we're gonna have to have some people in our corner for this at least. I hope he's one of them. And you and I both sent letters to our representatives about what's going on in crypto and the overreach that we think is happening. So, it would be a good idea for those of you listening as well to reach out to your congressman and just let them know that you are a fan of crypto and you hope, that they are as well. It could fix a lot of things that are kind of broken with the monetary system right now. Although, the government can't get their piece of the pie as easily. Obviously, we don't ever recommend not paying taxes, but if it were done
Pay as little.
correctly,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I mean, if it's done correctly, they'll still get their fair share. So,
Yeah.
just anyway, I just didn't know if you had looked at the TikTok law that was trying to get passed. Usually, when they throw a 45 or 50-page bill into it, half of it gets chewed up, thrown away, and spit out. They try and get as much as they can out of one bill that has nothing to do with TikTok, really.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That is usually the way those things go. And yeah, there's definitely an assault against crypto right now. There's more coming down the pike as well that the SEC is going to try to do. They want to have their fingers on everything, and the definitions of many things are very ambiguous. And reading the Howey test and things like that. But yeah, you speaking about sending letters to your representatives in your state and things like that. Yeah, probably like us, you're going to get some kind of a canned statement, back in return. And, they did get a little bit into politics today, actually, on that Bankless podcast. And, plain and simple, something that Emmer said that I think he nailed is the phrase elections have consequences.
mhm.
And to just remember, I mean, to me, this is coming from somebody who is an independent. I know you pretty much identify the same way you walk.
How do I identify?
I don't want to assume your political ideology here, but I know you're kind of in the independent thinker camp as well. And if you were looking at the two major parties right now, it's fairly clear which one seems to be, at least seems to be, more in favor of freedom, more in favor of crypto. It's really not an argument between those two.
Right.
And yeah, just to remind the administration that maybe in your state and the one in Washington right now that, yeah, elections have consequences and people are going to remember this stuff. So this pendulum, and not to get overly just political, but like this pendulum is just swinging so far to the left and to the right every 4 years right now. And yeah, it's interesting, but
Well, and that's another thing too, that one of the reasons why we never really get ahead, because you have one administration for one side, they'll come in and undo everything that the last guy did. And then, we get a new one in and they try and get all this stuff done, and then, or undo what the I feel like each administration is trying to undo what the last one did. And we just never really get ahead. We've got to kind of get a fresh start here and put some new things into place where it's going to make a big difference, rather than just flip-flopping back and forth on, different ideology that just it's not getting us anywhere.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, people are very reactionary. We'll see. Next, obviously, presidential election is 2024, so we'll see how that all pans out. But yeah, elections do have consequences, as Representative Emmer did say. I do want to, before we kind of wrap up, like where the market is in general right now. If this doesn't interest you, Ewok, we'll skip by it. I just find this interesting, and I want to examine it because one thing I really love about studying this market is the psychology behind it. Because when prices swing, so rapidly up and down in crypto, you're going to get a lot of people that wreck themselves. Obviously, you're going to get a lot of people thinking, for some reason, with this market more than anything, people like to dig their heels in with exactly where they are. We're definitely going here again. We're definitely going to 12K. We're new all-time high by the end of this year. Just really dumb, outlandish things. And I can't help but continuously bring up Crypto Capo, or Capo of Crypto, on Twitter. I know he trends every time there's a red day in the market right now, but he's basically assumed the, back to that word again, identity of the literal perma bear. He literally is still calling for 10 or 12K. And every time there's a red day, he tweets about it again. And I don't know if he's master trolling. I don't know. It doesn't seem that way. And when a guy who has like 500,000 followers on Twitter and is presumably an accomplished trader says things like that with the current state of the market, doesn't ever provide any invalidation thesis. Like, where are you wrong with this call? I just start to get like, what are you even doing anymore? I just don't. What's the point? I just
Right.
don't understand it. Like, and I don't know. I don't know if you care about this or have any insight to it. I don't care about him necessarily individually. I just more so any person going through that level of thought, like that psychology. What brings you to that? And like, why would you not, disclose? I don't know. He's like, oh yeah, I trade the market both ways. Well, it certainly doesn't seem like you do. I mean, anyway, I don't know if you have any thoughts
Well,
on that kind of
yeah,
thing.
kind of. I mean, a lot of people, we have that in Hex. There's a lot of bears that are still calling for 3, 4, 5 cent, maybe even 2 cent, whatever, uh, only because they want to buy in cheaper. They're trying to FUD people
Mhm.
out of their positions, thinking that it may go lower. Uh, and a lot of times it's because they want to buy in cheaper. That's seriously the mentality of some of the folks that do that. So I don't know. I don't follow him. I follow very few traders. Um,
Right.
so, I really don't have an opinion on him, but the overall, mentality that does that sometimes, that is why. So that's
Mhm.
really all I've got on. eh,
I think you could definitely be right, but the thing is, he's been calling for it since since many people were back in like
Yeah.
June of 2022, and now he continues to do so. So yeah, I don't know if it's like, did he miss the bottom entirely? Decided that in November he still wasn't going to buy, and now that we're almost at 2x up from that, I don't know. It's just very strange to me.
Well,
But
and if we freakishly go down to those levels, the 12K, where Richard actually had said, and here we are all saying no, it's over. We're going to be the ones that look foolish too. So, or not maybe foolish, but like we don't know what the hell we're talking about. So
yeah,
it does go both ways. There are people out there that will maybe even make both calls, delete the ones that
oh
were
yeah,
wrong, and say, "Yeah, I was right. See, here's what I said."
yeah.
So there's those folks too. There's all the internet takes all kinds of people, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I guess with where this is right now, it's just there's so much technical, uh, there's so many technical things to look at on the chart that it's just like I don't. If you're calling for that again, we're almost in like black swan territory. I feel like if that were to happen now, but yeah, we'll see where it goes. But the next thing we're going to talk about quick before we get into more of this serious hex portfolio talk was going to be what is going on with this Binance story that came out. This was the one that, again, like I said, if we were still more in with bear vibes, people might have cared a little bit more. But basically, CZ being accused, and maybe there's proof. I don't even know. I'll be honest. I didn't even look into this that much. I don't know if you did, but basically, Binance and wash trading implicating CZ a little bit. Seems like there's Binance FUD here and there that just will never go
Yeah.
away, and CZ's kind of the Teflon Don of crypto. So what do you think here?
Well, they're one of the large exchanges that still exist and operate, so they feel like maybe they should be punished too, or get caught for some of the things that they're doing. I know it was proven that there were about 300 wallets or so that CZ owned, that were essentially wash trading, and all exchanges do it. We know it. We've called them out many times, and that's why you see on these coin ranking sites, if you look at nomics, it'll tell you how transparent the trading is, right?
Mhm.
And Bitcoin is probably around 30%. You really only see about 30% that happens, because the other 65% is wash trading. They're playing around in the background. They're manipulating price. There's a lot of them that have a button that will hunt out and liquidate short and long sellers. Um, it's known. So I don't see how that many people were surprised about it, or taken aback. And I think that's why it really didn't affect the markets, because everybody just seems to be okay with it. And that's another reason why we push decentralized trading and Uniswap and things like that, where it's all on chain and there's no denying or trying to hide what just happened, trade wise. You can see it. I think Hex is 94% transparent, so
Yeah.
pretty damn good. There's not a lot that can go on behind the scenes. So Yeah, I don't think people were, again, everyone's used to it. Unfortunately, that's the way it is, and probably will continue to be.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you there. But yeah, good to see overall as we do look at the market. I mean, things are looking pretty positive. We're about to run into April here, of course. And macro wise, I mean, other than anything that could come up between now and then, we're really just waiting for the next FOMC meeting and CPI print. If anybody cares about it anymore by that point, to see where inflation is and where they're going to go in terms of rate hikes. So money is being printed. So I think the battle for inflation hedging is over as far as the Fed goes. So let's turn our attention to the main event now tonight. So PulseChain, obviously. And hey, guys, if you are here and in the chat and enjoying, please do hit the like. Hit up the chat as well. If you have any questions or comments about the main topic here tonight, let us know. We'd love to answer them for you and give our thoughts. But first of all, the age-old question. We're a week out now. It seems like it's been so much longer than that, but a week out from testnet version 3 for PulseChain being out. It was an hour before we went on the air last week when it did come out. Richard was really, man, I don't want to say I got suckered into it. I don't really care about being right or wrong about this at this point, but I mean, Monday night or whatever it was, or Sunday night, I don't know. You might remember, but he tweeted something about like, hey, just a reminder that again, now that version 3 is out, this is your reminder warning that means at any time, mainnet could be live, which I was like, man, we might get this thing like tomorrow.
Well, that's what we were. Yeah, that's what we were talking about on the last stream. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, we were like, it could be hours just by the way he was talking. But it's been a week, and obviously not the case. Sorry, go ahead.
No, but it did make me think that just the way that he was talking, and I think clearly, like we talked about last week, he wants people that are actually in the asset class in the community into HEX to be the ones that do benefit from this. It's not a normal VC funded big time airdrop or something like that. And I saw a hypothesis from somebody. I mean, you're going to see this, every angle of dissecting these things in the HEX Twitter space, of course. But I saw somebody else saying, like, could he be doing these subtle teases to weed out even more people that maybe in HEX that are like, oh yeah, V3's out, that means it's right around the corner. And then if it doesn't come out until May, just like with the outrage marketing or whatever you want to call it of 2022, could this be another way for the next few months, couple months, few weeks, whatever, to weed out people who are not seriously long-term, invested in this? I don't know, just something I heard.
Yeah, I agree. I think it could be very well. I know my camera's lagging, or it seems to be.
Oh, I didn't see. Okay.
But yeah, I think it could be another tactic like that as well. There's always going to be weekends that we would hopefully, as HEX holders, want to wash out. It means they can't hurt the price. So I would rather get them out now before they get a free copy and can dump that all too. Instead of just one thing that they're dumping, then they would have two. So yeah, I think so. I think the way it's going to roll out is very slowly, methodically. They'll add features very slowly, and do it right. But I think it's going to be a very bare bones product when it actually does launch. And the same for PulseX too. I don't think we'll have the limit orders or anything really set up like that. The single-sided staking probably won't exist. Those are all features that'll get added in slowly as things get tested and battle tested, so to speak, with volume, and just see how it handles it before they start throwing new features in.
I just saw a tweet about that, as you mentioned it just a few minutes ago. Yeah, that these things are going to be released, especially PulseX, I think. Like you just said, pretty bare bones with the scaling in of different improvements and things like that. So what do you think it does kind of look like day one? I mean, is it going to be just, here's PulseX, this is the Uniswap on PulseChain, this is where you can kind of trade in and out, and that's it? I mean, what do you think?
Well, yeah, don't forget there's going to be ratios for probably 24 to 48 hours, right? So we're not even going to have prices. So limit orders really don't matter. Um, I don't know that you can set limit orders with a ratio. So again,
Yeah.
that doesn't matter. There's a lot of features that aren't important. It's hard to provide liquidity when there are ratios as
Right.
well. So again, I think they're just going to roll it out. I think you're going to have PulseChain, pretty standard, not a whole lot of features. There'll probably be the option to be a validator. You'll see those options. And then as far as PulseX goes, it'll be pretty much just standard, like I would say Uniswap V1 or maybe even V2, but not much further than that. So
Yeah.
until that bridge goes live, which the bridge won't be live either, the only assets we're going to have are the copies. So for the first, probably 2 days, that's what we're going to have. And again, I think it'll be pretty bare bones.
Speaking of that, and let me, I know you clearly know this, and so do I, and I think most people that are way into Hex and creation of Pulse understand this. But speaking of the copies of coins, a lot of people this past week were kind of panicking and weren't sure whenever V3 was live, and it seemed like, oh my god, like maybe that could be imminent here. A lot of people were speculating, did the snapshot already happen? Like, did the coins already get copied in the state that they're in? Is there even a point to me buying more Hex right now? Will I get a copy of it? I don't know where that came from. I guess like maybe just because V3 came out and people were so thinking the mainnet was right around the corner.
Yeah.
Richard luckily eventually just cleared it up and said like, no, definitely there has not been a snapshot. But where do you think that came from? And I guess like on the actual timeline, some people are saying like stop calling it a snapshot. It's not really a snapshot. It's just a system state. I don't even know. Like
it's a fork. Yeah. People need to stop. Yeah. I agree with that statement. It's not a snapshot at all. So a snapshot is a moment in time where they take a picture of the blockchain at that given point, and then we'll historically go back and reward people that held or did something up until that point. This is not going to be a snapshot at all. So I really wish people would just stop calling it that, because it's not that at all. This is a true system state fork. And when that fork happens, PulseChain will be live at that given second in time. You will have your copies. PulseChain goes live. Everything that is released is there, and ready to go. So snapshot is really not the correct terminology at all.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, because snapshot does indicate that, again, it's a moment in time and you better have made sure you did this or that or the other thing. You don't really have to make sure you do anything other than what you should already be doing, which is having your tokens in, your own wallet that you control the keys to.
Yeah.
And as long as you do that, whenever the fork actually happens, then it will all be over there. So,
something else, though, I think people heard V3, and that's what caused a lot of the dumping. They thought that was the real thing. So they went and sold, thinking they maybe had a copy or that was a snapshot, and they got their free copy, and that's all they wanted. And then they sold their Hex on this side, on the ETH side. So I really think that misunderstanding or just being uneducated on what's really happening caused a little bit of that sell down pressure that we saw from 12 cents down to about 7 or so. I think that kind of triggered some of it.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And it was random too. That was really surprising when we saw that drop down to that level. You very well could be right about that. And now as we rally kind of back up towards 9, you kind of just segued in it naturally here. Do you think that drop down to about 7 cents? That's the most violent drop we've seen here in a matter of weeks, at least anyway, for Hex. Do you think we've kind of maybe created a new floor around that area? I'm not asking you to guarantee we don't go below a certain amount again, because again, we also don't know exactly what will happen with the Ethereum version of Hex price upon PulseChain launch. I mean, we're going to see some interesting things, but at least on like a lower time frame here and pre-launch, do you think 7 might be kind of the new floor for us here for Hex?
Well, yeah, kind of. I think so as a natural floor. However, the one thing that we do have to keep in mind, When this goes live, or if there's any kind of indication that it's about to, there could be people pulling liquidity. So keep in mind that the liquidity pools, if they're left in, when the fork happens, the fixer bot is going to eat all that up, right? So you're not going to get a copy of your liquidity over on the other side. I really don't think. So people are going to be pulling their liquidity so that they do get a copy. When that happens, it's going to make trading extremely volatile. So
Yeah.
there could be very, very, very little liquidity. And then if some big holder happens to dump, not knowing what's going on at that time, you could see a massive, massive drop. So, you know, I hate to say we've hit a floor because you just don't know what could happen in that scenario. And I hope that's kind of why we don't get a warning, because I don't
Yeah.
want all the liquidity to get pulled. Then you've got people out there talking and say, see, I told you it was a rug pull. Here it is. Richard's taking all your money. There it goes. It's
Right.
gone. Poof. And that's not the case at all. So again, I hope there's nothing like that. I just kind of hope it happens and um, we move on. But there is a possibility that if there is some sort of warning or secret knowledge of something where liquidity does get pulled, things could be extremely volatile there for a short bit of time, until the fork happens, and then it probably goes right back in. So just keep in mind, when we say a floor, you never really know, especially in this scenario.
Yeah, this is a really unique scenario, obviously, with PulseChain coming. But yeah, I am with you there. Yeah, we both pretty much think that there's no way Richard will announce that it's happening at this point. I mean, I think really at this point we're looking at like you wake up, especially with what he's done. I mean, he's like every few days basically saying like, hey, reminder, this could be launching at any time. So at this point, if you're not aware of that and don't have your ducks in a row for wherever you want to be in this market right now, it's kind of going to be on you. And I think it's best that it does just launch, the fork occurs, and we're there. And just like you said too, it's very important to avoid any kind of like price manipulation or overreaction leading up to it. So yeah, I'm with you there.
I just want to answer Solomon here. It says, I tried connecting my wallet to Pulse X, got strange message. Solomon, are you making sure that you are on the V3 side? Because I know V2B is probably going to be going away soon.
Yeah.
Make sure you're on the right network. And if you are having an issue, they could be fixing something as well. I know there was some issues with gas fees not going through, transactions not going through properly because the gas was not correct. If you have any issues with that, just try, speeding up the transaction or resetting it will help it. I've heard a couple different fixes, but they are addressing it and it should be fixed soon. But again, this is testnet. So if you got a strange message, it's hard to say what it was.
And that's another good segue because I wanted to talk a little bit about what you are seeing, Ewok, with testnet v3. I'm not sure how much you've gone in and played around with it, but obviously people are doing so. And yeah, I know that there's been a lot of, maybe not, I don't want to say a lot of issues, but there's been a lot of things that are missing, not operating correctly, that have been tweaked and things like that. That's really what the testnet obviously is for. But what do you make of what you're seeing with the test net, and what kind of actual like hard concrete work do you think really does need to be done before they would go ahead and push this through to be live, especially with what you said earlier, which I agree with, that we're probably going to get a pretty bare bones version of both of these upon launch.
I'm not a developer, so I really don't
Really?
know how much. Yeah, really. So I don't know how much is left, or what really needs to happen. I know I've seen some metrics that things were 97, 93, 95% synced up on the one side. I know once you hit that last bit, it takes forever to finish actually syncing the lighthouse and the Aragon and all that, all the different things that are being tied into this. So I'm really not sure what else needs to be done. I did go in, played around with it, looked at the block explorer, um, did some different things with some coins, did the coin checker to make sure that it was seeing all the coins that I actually had on ETH, and I was getting a copy. The one thing I did notice is there was what was it? I think it was Icosa. The decimal place for Icosa is weird. It's a 9 decimal when most cryptos are 8. And it gave me an extra decimal place. So, for example, if I had 5,000 Icosa in my wallet, it actually showed that I had 50,000. So I hope they take care of that. Otherwise, there are going to be a lot of extra coins that, potentially, now I don't know how that works, but, if the decimal place is off, can you spend those extra coins? I would hope not. But, I'm sure it needs to be addressed. And I did mention it to Alex and let him know. So if he can have an inside track to any of the developers, hopefully they get that fixed.
Cool. Well, yeah. So there's been a lot of playing around with the testnet v3 over the course of the last week, but yeah, it could happen at any time, folks. So get your stuff where you want it to be, and we will see when this thing comes out. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, like most people have been saying May for a while. I mean, already. I mean, most people have been saying a lot of things for the better part of a year, but a lot of people were saying V3 in March. Mainnet in May. So far, they've got one of those two things right. So we'll kind of see how that goes. What do you think, Ewok, about is there any chance that we don't see mainnet until like the fall of this year at this point? I mean, do you think there's any way? Because a little bird told me that Richard might be timing the market here, and it would just make sense. I mean, hey, we think the Fed's going to pivot. May happens to be the next FOMC meeting. Things are lining up. I mean, we're right there. I think he's, got his finger on, well, maybe I shouldn't make that reference right now, but I think he's there ready to go. And, I could definitely see him. I think he's timing this thing, and I think we're seeing the markets turn around. So what do you think?
I could see May. I really don't think it'll be that long. Just because of the last few warnings we've gotten, it does seem a lot closer than what that'd be almost a full month away. I do think it's closer than that. So it definitely will not be in the fall, like you stated earlier. I think that if you talk about washing people out, that would definitely do it. So, but yeah, no, I think we're within weeks anyway. I don't think it'll be a full month.
Okay. So you're saying April. You're saying
I think it'll happen sometime in April. I do.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, we shall see. Definitely optimistic. So if you guys are here and enjoying the show, hit the like. We very much appreciate it. And we're going to cover the main topic right now. And this really interested me today. I actually didn't even think about this at first, but I started thinking about it. And a lot of people, there's a lot of game theory around what people want to do when PulseChain obviously goes live. Many people are obviously in HEX right now. If you're sleeping under a rock, the main thing that we would do is say to buy, would buy HEX to make sure that we get the copy prior to PulseChain launch. Sometimes people ask the question, should I just have dry powder on the side to try to accumulate PulseX and or PulseChain, the token? And really the best thing to do, not financial advice to you, but what I am doing, what Ewok is doing, is buying HEX, because right now, even, especially, now that we're down to the 8s again, because you will get that free copy you get the copy of HEX on PulseChain. And if you want to, so number one right there, you've already got, a 100% return on your HEX in terms of HEX anyway. And then at that point, you could use that as your dry powder to transition over into Pulse, transition into PulseX, whatever it is you would like to do. And don't forget, Ewok has brought this up many times. If you happen to hold other tokens as well that are ERC20 tokens on Ethereum, you're going to get that copy as well. We don't know if at all, they will hold any value once they get to Pulse or for how long. But remember, you're going to get them too, and could possibly use them to trade into anything that you may not have yet that you want to acquire. So with all of that said, Ewok, obviously, Richard Hart created HEX. It's been like, the greatest crypto invention and smart contract protocol yet. What is as a longtime OG Hexican, what is your view of how much do you really want? And you can break this down into both versions of HEX if you want, because I'm interested in that too. But how much of your portfolio do you really want to be HEX versus how much you're holding in Pulse or PulseX or anything else in this ecosystem? We can even go out as far as Hedron, but kind of just talking more like the major tokens that are actually Richard Hart tokens. How are you looking to break it down? And, full disclosure, you sacrifice for Pulse and PulseX. So what do you think? What makes sense for you with this portfolio?
When you brought that up earlier this morning and you said, I do want to talk about allocations and things like that, I started thinking about it. And it's funny because as the bull market happens, your allocation percentages could change. For example, I know during the last market, a lot of people had maybe 5-10% of their portfolio allocated to HEX, and it literally turned into 85%
Right.
of their value. So it's really hard to say at this time. I do know I'm not going to dump HEX for anything else. I was fortunate enough to sacrifice some pretty solid amounts for each Pulse and PulseX. So I'm hoping I'll be okay there. As far as value goes, I'll probably still at launch, I'll probably still be 80% allocated in HEX, just because of the value of it. Now, if I took the amount that I sacrificed for Pulse or PulseX, it's way more than I put in to HEX at the beginning. So it's, you know what I mean? It's a very hard thing to really compare. And I don't know how you even put a percentage on it when the prices change so much. Then you're going to get the copy. So you got to figure that in. And then, the only thing that I can really say percentage wise is I probably put 50 times, maybe more, in to the sacrifices than I did in the adoption amplifier and through the early days of HEX. So,
right.
As time goes on, we'll kind of see how that all evens out percentage wise. But I think, like I said, for me, it's going to be a lot different for people that didn't sacrifice for either one. And they are right now the only opportunity they have to get in. Well, not the only one, but I think the strongest one is the HEX opportunity of buying the HEX and then kind of evening it out. So for me, it's a little different than what it would be for somebody new that's just trying to get into it that way. So I don't have a good answer, unfortunately, percentage wise, but if I were new, I would probably try and break them up as evenly as possible. Keep in mind, HEX is still going to pay that yield. So that is super important. And, PulseChain, deflationary, PulseX, buy and burn. So those are going to go down while HEX is still generating more of that yield asset. So just something to think about.
Yeah, and that's kind of the answer that I thought you would give. Is just like, obviously, to each his own, number one. But yeah, you are going to be, you're in the way. You're kind of the minority. Like, not many people would have been HEX OGs and be so overloaded in HEX right now because of that crazy price appreciation, and had the opportunity to sacrifice for both Pulse and PulseX. Because let's remember, I mean, we're nearing a year. From PulseChain sacrifice window here. So, or excuse me, no.
2 years
Yeah,
from Pulse
two actually, yeah, and
in
over a
June.
year already since PulseX. Man,
Yeah.
time flies, I
Yep.
guess. But yeah, so remember that as well. But yeah, I'm with you, and maybe leads me to this question: is like, you don't have to do this, obviously, but of these assets, I mean, like Hex, you kind of just said it. I mean, Hex has that yield. Hex is really like the engine to this whole thing. Like Hex was the initial Richard Hart creation. That's the thing that is most important to me to own
Mhm.
on both blockchains. And the actual layer one of PulseChain and the DEX of PulseX are other assets I would want to have as well. So I guess like as the prices establish themselves for all of these tokens a few months in, maybe then you can start looking a little bit more towards a specific allocation. But to me, much like the thumbnail, if you're watching us live tonight, like Hex is the one I would want to be overweight in, and it likely is going to be the one that you will be overweight in for some time because that's what you've already got right now. You're
Right.
going to get the copy, obviously. Will we, won't we? How soon will we see parity in price on those two chains? And then, how much do you want to get involved in Pulse or PulseX? That's a question I want to ask you right now. So put yourself in the shoes of somebody who did not sacrifice, let's say, for either one. We've talked about this before. The most common sacker, if you will, is somebody who sacrificed for PulseX, not for PulseChain, because it came about 6 months later down the road. And there's just way more people to sacrifice for PulseX. But put yourself in the shoes of somebody who did not sacrifice at all. What would you be? We won't talk in dollar terms, but in Hex terms anyway. And I agree with you. I wouldn't want to depart with my Hex. Like even now, when I think of it, and we propose, like we're saying right now, buy Hex to have that copy, and then if you would like to trade that, go ahead. But then I'm going to feel like, well, I don't really want to trade my Hex.
Right.
It's like you want to take new money at that time and do it. But what would you, of the Hex that you'd have at the time, I guess, what percentages or how much of a percentage would you want to get out of and buy some Pulse and PulseX once the dust has settled a little bit, the first couple of days and the ratio trading has died down? What percentage would you think comfortable of ditching out on Hex to acquire these two tokens?
I think I would probably stay 60, 20, 20. 60% Hex, 20% Pulse, 20% PulseX. That's about as evenly rounded as I could probably guess. And maybe even go 80, 10, 10, and then pull that other 10 and 10 in later to equal out some, to get some dry powder in after the bridge is active. When you can bridge in some money, hopefully then by then, like you said, the dust may have settled by then, and you can get a decent price floor. We've talked about this before. Usually anywhere between 15 to 40 days, most new charts will find a bottom or a floor at that point. Once the dust settles anyway, you might be able to get a pretty good deal. So you may want to go 80, 10, and 10, and then put your other 10% of each in when you get that opportunity. So, I wouldn't recommend doing it all at the very beginning because I do see somewhat of a pullback. Just like every other crypto that launches, that it's probably going to happen. No financial advice. It goes straight up. I don't know what to tell you. Sorry for your luck, but I think that is probably a strategy that I would do is, get 10% of each at the beginning, and then try to dollar cost average your way in. It's still always been one of the best ways to get into anything, is to DCA as you get more dry powder. And by then, like I said, the bridge will be working. You'll be able to, get into USD or ETH or whatever it may be, bridge it over, and use that value and purchase more.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you there. And we got a comment from I missed it now.
Thomas.
Yeah, I want to get to that, but I was just seeing another comment where somebody said that's the exact shoes that they're in. They didn't sacrifice for either one, so it's good for them to hear.
Oh,
And I think that is good because we're so far beyond it now. I mean, we are over a year beyond the last sacrifice. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that don't. If you have a sacrifice for either one of them, you feel good knowing that like I'm already in on the ground floor. I at least have my foot in the door a little bit. Yeah, there you go. RH Crypto Jeff. Yeah.
yeah. So can I hit this one real quick?
Yeah.
Thomas, there's going to be bridges. So you're going to be able to bridge in whatever it may be. A wrapped token will come out on the other side. You'll be able to trade that pair for whatever you want. And then the same thing in reverse. You're going to be able to bridge back out. Now, eventually, we're going to have on on and off ramps, hopefully fairly soon, because we know OX Coast, that team, is working on and off ramps where you will probably be able to buy Pulse straight up and then do it that way in and out. They're also talking about HEX as well. That was also something new as of last week or so. I forget. I saw they're going to be able to buy directly into HEX. Now, I don't know if it'll be EHEX or PHEX, but either way, there's going to be on and off ramps eventually, and there will also be a bridge. So that's why it's important right now to mess around with testnet and see what's there. So when it happens, you're not one of the casualties of, I don't know how I just lost all my money when I tried to go in or out of the network. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of tutorials made at that time for doing it. Hopefully when it's live, you had said to me the other day, hey, why don't you make a video on how to claim your weight token? And I said, why? Because Coffee already made one. So, I just kind of point them in that direction. And there will be videos, though, to help you along with this. Just keep an eye out and make sure you're searching for a credible source, somebody that's been in the HEX community for a while.
Yeah, Coffee already made one is a rallying cry of a lot of, hey, should I do this new video about a Hex tutorial? It's like, well, Coffee's already got it covered. So, but yeah, I am traditionally with you, just kind of finishing off on that point about the portfolio. I mean, yeah, I think being overweight in Hex is always going to be the move. Like that is the asset. Like, don't forget, as excited as everybody is for PulseChain, that is an invention from Richard because of expensive fees on Ethereum, and it's good. It's good innovation. Hex is a huge ecosystem and definitely the, most rabid community in crypto. But Hex to me is the main asset to have. So yeah, I kind of agree with your 60-20-20 thing, maybe even as aggressive as 80-10-10. And, remember too, I mean, like the EHEX, your dollar cost averaging, basis, like where you actually bought at, is going to be a higher number than the value, I should say, of Hex is going to be much higher than what the value is on Pulse or PulseX whenever you initially buy those. So remember that too, and remember the room to run that those two may have in relation to Hex. You could kind of shave some off the top here and there, although I wouldn't get too aggressive with that. I mean, it's really all up to you, but I am with you. I will always want to be overweight in Hex. So
yeah.
What
So I know there will be stable coins eventually. Liquid Loans guys will have a stable coin. There's another group that's talking about one as well. I don't know how long. It probably won't be upon launch, but there will be some stable coins on PulseChain. So just
Yeah.
hang tight for those. They won't happen immediately, but they will be there.
So with that, let's actually finish off on, you've been the Segway King tonight. Let's finish off on this weight token. So I remember hearing about it, and in fairness, hey, if you are in, any crypto ecosystem, you hear about this token, that token, all this stuff. And it's no different with Hex, but I guess I should say the difference is a lot of these tokens are from people, for the most part, with extremely good intentions and made good products, but that have built on top of Hex. I am personally, beyond Alex McWhirter's Hedron and Icosa, I really haven't been that interested in much else. I think that that's by far the best innovation that's been built on top of Hex. I definitely hold both. But in terms of, there's a lot of these other tokens and incentives for, good Hex staking behavior over the last year or two that other people created. One of them that is directly related to the sacrifice and the launch of PulseChain and PulseX, or I should say the sacrifice to anything that you could sacrifice within PulseChain. Not anything, I'll let Ewok clarify, but has been the WAIT token. You heard correctly, WAIT. And the reason I did want to get to this, Ewok, is because when you first had mentioned it, I think last week or the week prior, and I got a lot of comments on some of the videos saying, like, what is the WAIT token? What is he talking about? Somebody actually spelled it like WEIGHT. So people definitely were not aware of it. I said to you too, I was like, damn, I remember when this came out, but I'll be damned if I remember what it is or anything. So
Right.
I'm going to let you take it away explaining what it is, who would have access to the WAIT token, and how to claim it here. So fire away.
All right. So the WAIT token was created by the 0x Coast team. Those are the guys I was talking about who are creating the on ramp currently.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and just open the claim page and show you guys the different tokens that if you sacrificed for, you will have a credit. Now, the idea is it's almost like a game of chicken, right? You want to wait as long as you can before PulseChain launches, because once PulseChain launches, the amount that you're able to claim goes away. So, for example, PulseChain, if you sacrificed anything for Pulse or PulseX, let's just list all these first: Liquid Loans, Hurricash, Genius, Mintra, Fiat, or IMD. If you sacrificed for any of these tokens, you are eligible for the WAIT token. The way it goes is you get one token per hour the longer you wait. So if you wait a day, you've got 24. If you wait, 3 days, you've got 72, and so on. Obviously, because PulseChain sacrifice was so long ago, we're looking at almost 2 years. You have those days times 24 each. So this is just the basic website. I don't have it connected to a wallet or anything like that. But so anyway, when you claim these tokens, you can claim them at any time. But again, if PulseChain launches and you haven't claimed them, you lose out. That's where the cool feature kind of comes in, very similar to Big Payday with Hex. The whole Bitcoin claim with Hex, the people that didn't claim were the ones that got the people that didn't claim all those Hex tokens that were not claimed during the adoption amplifier phase were the ones. That's how the rewards were divvied out on Big Payday. So it's going to be very similar to this. All the WAIT tokens that aren't claimed when it launches will be part of the what they call the midnight bonus. So you'll be able to claim those as well, as long as you claimed before it launches. So I do recommend, unless you've got an inside scoop of when it's going to launch, that you don't wait too long. If you did sacrifice for any of these, go ahead and claim your tokens. Wait as long as you want, but remember, it will be gone if you don't do it the second it happens. So now, the other feature of this is because the code has changed somewhat from the time that this was done, and the PulseChain code, the WAIT tokens that you will have 5 days once PulseChain goes live to convert your V1 WAIT into V2. It's a different token, and then I think you lose 5% every day until they're gone. So it is another built-in feature, game theory kind of thing that just claiming them isn't all you really have to do. Once you claim them, and then once PulseChain goes live, you're also going to have to switch them into the V2, which is down here under convert. So they don't show the chart on this site. I don't know where it is. It might be on their regular website. Let me check and see if it's on the regular website where the sacrifices white paper. I'm not sure. No, I don't know where the chart is that shows you, but either way, if you get the first 5 days to convert them over to V2. After the 6th day, you get 95%, 7th day, 90%, and so on and so forth until you get basically nothing. You might get 10. I think they stop it at 10%. So you do get something. It doesn't bleed out completely. But yeah, so you definitely want to do that too. It's a free token. So Pulse Police have looked at it. There's no problems with it. It's just to read your wallet to see if you've sacrificed, and you mint your coins. Now, you do have 2 steps to claiming the tokens. So you have to approve the claim, and then you actually have to claim. So there's 2 steps to it. So again, don't wait till the last minute and run out of time because the blockchain's full and you don't feel like spending $20 or $30 to claim your free tokens. So yeah, that's about it. I mean, that's the gist of it. And I think you're muted.
I am. So basically for sacrificers, yeah, if you have sacrificed for any of those previously mentioned tokens, then that will also be there for you. And again, the weight token is one of many things. We had Communis, or however it's actually pronounced, the last couple of months. That was to reward HEX stakers. Obviously, Hedron, which I already mentioned. I mean, like if you have HEX stakes, you can claim free Hedron by the time that stake runs out as well.
Yep.
And buy it, of course, on the open market. So yeah, that is the cool thing. Although, not Richard Hart inventions, there are people making really cool things built on top of HEX that, if holding HEX for the price appreciation wasn't enough, if holding HEX for the return on investment through mining wasn't enough, then all of these other little rewards for just living out the smart contract in the most optimal way are also out there for you. So, it's hard to do wrong in this ecosystem, honestly.
Yeah.
So
we've gotten rewarded with so many cool things, airdrops, cool things made by members. Some of them were to pull, obviously some monetary money, well, some monetary energy, I should say, in their direction. But for the most part, a lot of them have been in good faith. And rewarded people without making them sacrifice, without making them do extra things. So yeah, we've gotten some really cool airdrops along the way. It's been neat.
Amen to that. So yeah, I think that's pretty much going to wrap us up for tonight. A good conversation. I'm glad we got into discussing kind of the HEX and PulseChain portfolio for when it does eventually drop. If you guys are still here, hey, I hope you enjoyed the stream. Hit the like. We very much appreciate it. Thank you for watching tonight. We do this. If this is your first time here, we do this every single Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, got a lot of good stuff coming up. And,
we're closing in on episode 50 here in a couple weeks.
Closing in on episode 50. And don't let that fool you. We've actually been doing the show for about 1.5 years. We just were nowhere near as consistent with it way back in the beginnings. But definitely so now. And hey, I'm telling you, like, this is the year for accumulation. And eventually, remember, not telling anybody else what to do, but I personally, I know this train is going to leave the station eventually. Not now, maybe about 1 year from now. And, or just
better have your bags packed.
That's basically it. And I do, like, basically I'm packed and just kind of adding to it, where I can. But, you got to remember too, like, you got to know when the time to strike is, and to remember too, that when we officially have flipped to being uber bullish, where there's these giant green candles and stuff like that, that's not going to be as much the time to accumulate. I mean, you certainly can on the way up, but just remember that the X's exponentially get smaller and smaller as you get towards that,
Yep.
apex, the top of the mountain again. So this is the year. This is the year to do it. So, Ewok, do you have any kind of final thoughts for anybody tonight?
Yeah, I do actually. I heard Staker version 2 will probably be released this weekend. If you're a Staker app user, go ahead and kind of keep an eye out for that. I know they're rolling it out incrementally, so not everybody will get the update. If you're on Android or iPhone, the update for that app will come out hopefully this weekend. I know they've been working on it for quite some time. Steph and Firebun have put a lot of work and a lot of time into that. So if you're not a Staker user, you should check it out. If you're a HEX staker, then definitely keep an eye out for that.
Definitely, yes. Staker app is great. If you haven't used it before, basically you just any MetaMask wallet that you hold HEX in or have your stakes in, you can link right up to it. Obviously, you're not using your private keys or anything. You're just putting in the wallet address, and it'll just pull in all the data for you, let you know how you're doing as far as your stakes, let you know if you're a squid, a whale, a turtle, I was going to make something up there, a sea
Mermaid.
sea lion, whatever else. Walrus. But so good stuff. Staker app update for sure. So we want to thank everybody again for watching. For Crypto Ewok, this has been Broke Boi Crypto. We'll catch you all next week right here on the Creed of Crypto podcast.
HEXPassiveIncome.com. My friend Crypto Coffee has created what I think is probably the best course for a new cryptocurrency investor. Not only that, but these courses usually charge an arm and a leg. Crypto Coffee is only charging $200. I think right now he actually has a discount for $150. I have a link below in the description. If you are new to crypto, do not understand HEX and how it works, click the link below. It's a quick, easy course. He only gives you the basics. I personally, myself, have thought about creating an intro to crypto course in the past. I don't think there's any reason to do so because Matt, Crypto Coffee, has already taken care of that. And I don't think anything needs to be added by anybody else. So check it out. The link is in the description and sign up to HEX Passive Income today.